if you take the wrong subject combination, if you go for the wrong university course. These are things that you can never get back. You potentially miss out on an entire career that you could have been in if you put in the effort to think about it and work towards it.
How much of this is over planning and how much of this is like actually really necessary?
Not planning and not making choices for yourself. At some point, life will make the choices for you. You end up in a situation where you're like, some doors are closed to you and why am I here?
So my question to you, Daryl, is if a parent wants to plan to make their child be more competitive at the university application stage, what does planning look like exactly? How early should you start? If you're looking at medicine and law, will things like chess and all that help? Or
there's no one size fits all, but generally speaking,
the whole uni thing is it's getting more competitive. So what would you say is a good 3-step approach to getting there?
Yeah, okay, so step 1, really you need to...
Right, so today we're doing something different. We have Daryl on the show. Daryl worked in admissions consulting for quite a couple of years in one of the biggest admissions consulting company in the world and is now the co-founder of Griffin Education, doing more of the same thing. So I think what I want to start with here today is, we're going to talk about university admissions, right? That's what college consulting is about. And I want to start with this, which is, conventional wisdom, I would say maybe 15, 20 years ago, dictated that you study hard, you do well, you go to uni, job done, right? And I want to ask Daryl, like, based on your work and your experience with clients, is that still true today? Is it just, study hard, do well, go to uni, and then, that's the end of it?
Yeah, I think it's quite obvious that long gone are the days where, if you're a top student at a top school, you'll definitely get into university, right? Or definitely get into a course of your choice. Or even, let's say, get into a good job, right? Those days are really long over. So I think it's really a fact, a statistical fact. University admissions rates are just steadily dropping year after year after year. It's just getting more and more competitive. I would say mostly due to rising demand, right? So yeah, it's a very, very different landscape right now.
So I guess we can talk about Naga for a moment. So Naga, how much planning, was your university journey pretty much the study hard, do well, apply kind of?
So you're going to ask me whether I got plan or I got, do some kind of direction.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so I didn't. I didn't. So are you going to agree with me?
Not angry.
No, I think what Daryl is going to say is that Daryl is going to say Naga will not make it to university.
Yeah, that's what I say.
Today,
But you're lucky because you did so long ago, right?
So
quite a while back.
Yeah, quite a while back.
Yeah.
So what was your journey like?
Okay, so I didn't plan much. It just happened to be that, I did the secondary O-levels. I went into JC. And then I just thought about what subjects I was good at. And then I decided that should be the pathway I should take to university. So I was good at geography. And then I just went to university, NUS, Faculty of Arts and Social Science, and I just majored in geography. If you ask me, it's a very simple, very linear route I took. I didn't plan, I didn't dictate, I didn't do any much extra effort. I didn't put any extra effort to make sure the path went like that. So this is my experience.
So I think we just stay on like the local uni scene for a moment, right? So Daryl, in your time doing admissions consulting, do you see a rising trend of people getting help for local university admissions?
Oh, definitely, especially for the more competitive courses.
What kind of
courses?
courses?
Mainly medicine, right? Because the demand is very high. Right, especially in our culture, people want to be doctors, or rather, maybe their parents want them to be doctors, right? And it's really getting hard, and there are a lot of different components they need to do well in, right? There's a specific admissions test you need to take, right? And there's also an interview process that can be quite daunting for students, especially if they have never been exposed to this before in their lives.
So I think, if I just think about maybe our batch, we are in the 30s range. I think people inferred it already, Naga. So that's on the back. And maybe even people a bit older. I know people in their 40s and 50s, lawyers and doctors. And I find that a lot of the 30-plus-year-olds and above, if you ask them like, did you always want to be a doctor or a lawyer and all that? The answer actually, more often than not, is no.
No, yeah. Definitely.
Right, like one of my really close friends, he was like, I studied really hard. I mean, he's older than us, like in his 50s, right? He's a partner at a law firm now. And I just asked him this question recently, and he's like, "Oh no, I just I got quite good grades, and then I just tried lah. I tried to apply for medicine and law. I got law, then I became a lawyer, and I'm like that." That to me just doesn't seem like it's gonna fly these days, right, Daryl?
Yeah, it's so common. I mean, it's very common. Even right now, I have to be honest, right? People tend to be led by, circumstances. They kind of just let life pull them along as they go, right? But okay, that can work out for some people, right? But you can also imagine it not working out for a lot more people, especially if they have like missed opportunities. And these are things that you can never get back. Right. For example, if you take the wrong subject combination, right? If you go for the wrong university course, right? You potentially miss out on an entire career that you could have been in if you put in the effort to think about it and work towards it when you were younger.
So I think, what you're saying is something that has gone into the mainstream consciousness already, right? So if we kind of go down that rabbit hole a little bit of like planning and exploring, because that's what you're saying, right? Which is we got to be a little bit more, sorry, not a little bit, but a lot more deliberate about the university route. And I think what we see with parents signing, their 4-year-old, 5-year-olds up for like chess and coding and violin and all that. I mean, these things has always been around, but I feel like that has accelerated. Like, how much of that, how much of this is like over planning and how much of this is like actually really, necessary? Like, how early should we start?
Yeah, you talk about these things, right? I mean, wasn't there a recent article on the Straits Times about student internships?
Yeah. I mean, that too, right? That's kind of crazy.
I mean, you think of it as crazy, but I think of it really as a very natural reaction, right, to the reality that we're in right now, right? The job market is competitive. University admissions market is competitive, right? Parents are doing what they can to make sure that their kid has one leg up, right? It's just an unfortunate reality that we have to adapt to and prepare for. I'm going to say something quite cliche, which is if you fail to plan, you plan to fail, right? But I truly believe in it because, not planning and not making choices for yourself, at some point, life will make the choices for you, right? You end up in a situation where you're like, how did I end up here where some doors are closed to me and why am I here, right? It's because you weren't deliberate enough, right? You didn't want to make any kind of choices for yourself. At a certain point, things will just happen to you. And I think to really avoid that, right, some amount of planning is good, right?
I think student internships aside, we just come back and talk about this whole extracurriculars and
enrichment
and all that. So Naga, you have a 5-year-old. What's your thinking behind the enrichment strategy there for your kid?
You see, as you said, 5-year-old. When I started being a parent, right, when my son was born, I thought I will not do all this, what parents in Singapore generally, just put it in the local context, do now. Because as young as 2 or even 1, I think some people are sending for enrichment, some infant music class and all that. So, I thought don't need. So I started with, as you said, maybe I started with no planning. So I don't need this for my son, just do what comes up as he grows. That's what my intention was. But as I moved on and he became 4 and all that. So I started observing him and then I said, okay, he's not a very athletic person as a kid. So I said, okay, maybe we should send for some physical activity thing. So I just signed up for gymnastics class. That's the first thing he went to. So and then slowly after that, one of the days he went after school, he came back and he said he likes maths and he saw one of his friends going for abacus class. So I said, okay, let's sign up for abacus class. So that's course number 2. Then slowly, I and my wife, we observed him and we saw that he's not a very extrovert a person who likes to be with people and talk to people openly. So I thought, okay, maybe, and that is a issue, I thought, because as teaching our kids nowadays, it's very important for presentation skills and all that, right? Even in the primary 1, primary 2, they're asking the students to actually go in front of the class and do show and tell. So I thought we need to prep him for that. So we sent for drama, speech and drama class. So these are 3 classes I sending my son to. Not planning. I would not say this is planning. It just happened to be, and I thought
Grooming lah.
Grooming, better term. But I just thought that's what I saw, what he needed or what he needs to be developed in. So, and then I just chose the classes. One of it is out of interest, you see. So that's what, if you call this planning, I don't know, I must ask you, is this planning?
I think it's planning.
Okay.
Right, because people think of plan as something rigid that you have to follow no matter what. But I think you're actually being a very responsible parent. I mean, part of it is exposure, part of it is being organic. But you're planning in a way where you are being very reactive to what you see in your child, right? Which I think is great. I think that's exactly what you need to do, especially at this age, right?
Yeah.
5 years old, the kid is still growing, changing rapidly. You're not going to force him to do, one thing that he may not like forever.
Yeah.
If you see there's something that maybe he's not suited for, he doesn't like, change. Yeah. So it's definitely a kind of planning.
So I guess the context of my question, just talking about the whole, people sending kids for classes and all that, is because I think in the past it used to be, you start sending your kids for enrichment and all that in their teenage years. But it's getting younger and younger, and I can't help but feel like some long-term game for university admissions is going on here. So my question to you, Daryl, is if a parent wants to plan, right, to make their child be more competitive at the university application stage,
Okay.
what does planning look like exactly? What's like a 3-step, 5-step plan? How early should you start? I mean, since we started this conversation about 5-year-olds, why don't we start there, right? Which is that too early? How does the plan evolve along the way? What does planning look like?
So very general speaking, right? I mean, there's no one size fits all, but generally speaking, before the age of 15, that's when you want to expose your kid to as many different things as possible, right? Because if you don't expose your kids to different things, you will not know what they are naturally interested in or what they are naturally good at, and you are therefore unable to nurture those strengths, right? So that's what you really want to do, right? Expose and nurture before the age of 15. And 15 onwards, ideally, is when you start to go very deep into an area of expertise. So for example, if you realize that your kid is very interested in chess, and happens to be really, really good in chess as well, that's something you can really hone in and zero in from the age of 15 onwards and go super, super deep.
Right. Would you say there's a difference? So we started talking about like Singapore University and I think how the landscape has changed, right? Last time it's easy, you do well, you're the top student, you get into medicine. And Daryl alluded to the fact that that's not easy to do anymore. You need more planning. So let's just stay on Singapore for a bit. What kind of planning are we talking about? Like, if you're looking at medicine and law, will things like chess and all that help, or do you have to be more deliberate? Like earlier, we were talking about student internships. About how that was reported in the news. Yeah. What does that look like for local admissions, like medicine and law, for example?
Yeah. So for Singapore admissions, what you need to understand is how they evaluate the students. Right. So number one is still school grades. You can never skip that. Medicine and law, you still need a straight A's. It's a non-negotiable, really, right? But number two, I would say you need to work towards things that are a bit more course subject specific, especially things that are more academic in nature, right? So if you're looking at things like medicine, if the student has a particular interest within medicine, and that's something that they can go a bit deeper into, whether it's through things like research or through things like going for academic competitions, that will actually be really, really good. Right? If you're talking about things like internships, right? Especially for medicine and law, they like to see the student having some kind of job or some kind of work experience, really, right? So you can think of it as shadowing, or you can think of it as internships, right? For example, working at a law firm for a certain amount of months, right? And I think not just working there, but what do you learn from it, right? Do you want to find out what you learn from it, which you then need to apply in your application at your interview. And same for medicine, right? Shadowing a doctor, what do you learn, right? Is it something that's suitable for you, right? These are things that they want to see from the student.
So what I'm hearing is that the planning a lot, as far as Singapore is concerned, you have to work backwards from what you have to show in your final application, right? What about, how does the strategy change for, say, like US and UK universities? Because I think, for Singaporeans,
It's quite
outside of Singapore, it's either US, UK, or Australia. But I guess Australia is a slightly simpler application process. So
that's right.
let's put that aside. Let's talk about US and UK. How would the strategy differ from Singapore and also like between the two countries?
Let's talk about UK first, because UK is similar to Singapore in the sense that it's also very grades focused, and also in that sense, it's very subject specific, right? For example, if you're applying for something like medicine or law, they do not really care about your achievements in chess, for example. I mean, that could signal something to them. Maybe you're a very logical thinker, but it wouldn't go very far in terms of getting you into the course, right? So you still want to work towards subject-specific requirements. Something to note, especially about the UK, is that for certain schools, it can be super, super competitive to get in. I'm talking about, of course, your Oxford and Cambridge. And if you're going for something like econs, London School of Economics, very, very competitive, right? A lot more competitive than getting into a Singapore university, the same course, right? So preparation-wise, you really want to go deeper into the subject as much as you can, right? And that could be as easy as, doing online courses on the subject, doing a H3, right? Signing up for research opportunities, right? All these things will go very far. If you're talking about the US though, the US is different because they do more holistic admissions. And so even if you're applying for, let's say, computer science at MIT, they do care about your achievements in chess. They want to see, what kind of person you are, what your personality is like, whether you have any leadership kind of appointments, right? They really want to see a well-rounded person. Yeah, so I would say for US, that's the main difference. And one more thing about the US to really note is that they want to see your achievements in your activities from the age of 15 onwards. So really the last 4 years of high school, from secondary 3 to JC 2. Right? So for US, it's very important to plan ahead, because let's say if you only start preparing in JC 1, your application is not going to look good because your first 2 years are kind of empty and you kind of load everything in the last 2 years. Those students typically don't do too well compared to people who, let's say, have something a bit more, spread out throughout the 4 years.
Yeah, so I think it's quite obvious that Naga is aiming for US gymnastics teacher job. What's your thought? I mean, it's still many years away, but what's your thinking as a parent of a 5-year-old with regards?
No, I mean, still, I don't believe that I'm planning. I mean, you all might.
It's okay, you can just live in denial. It's fine.
Loose planning.
Loose planning. I'm just exploring. I'm the exploratory stage
Which
where
is
I'm
part
just
of planning.
which is part of like what he said, right? After 15, then you focus,
Yes.
right? Maybe at 15, I think you as a parent, you can see your child's strengths and weakness clearly. This is where I think he's good at, just simple things like whether he's a very arts person or a science person. I think that's where you can see. And then I think you can plan it to, after that, maybe serious planning, go deeper into one area.
Yep.
Which will lead him to either US, UK, or local U and all that. So I think that's when I think serious planning starts. I think until that, I'm still in the exploring. According to mine, is a bit more different because I plan if I'm planning, according to my son's abilities, where he needs to enhance his abilities, where he needs more help in terms of pushing. If those areas, the interest also comes in there. So all these are in the primary age range, primary school age range. After that, maybe I will do more serious planning when I get to know his abilities more clearly. And on top of that, the interests he has. And then I think I can plan more deeper approach into courses or classes and all that. Then I think it's easier. Then I think if you plan a bit more earlier, maybe even in the primary school ages, I think it's a bit stifling for the kids.
It's unnecessary.
Unnecessary, yeah.
because stifling is one way to put it. Another way to put it is you are forcing your kid into a box. Right? Because they are not fully grown, they're still figuring out who they are. And I really think before the age of 15, you need to give them space to do that. So any kind of planning or exploration or activities you want them to do should be fluid before the age. So I think you're doing a great job.
Oh, thank you.
I guess hearing Naga is saying keep as many doors open as possible.
Yeah.
Right? I think Daryl kind of agrees, right? Yeah. When you say fluid, because I was actually going to ask, how would you distinguish between planning and exploration? Because I get the sense that you're really supportive of that whole, speech and drama and gymnastics thing and all that and the diversity it brings. But I think we also recognize that there might not be immediate tangible value at the end. But you're saying that that's valuable nonetheless because it's exploration. It just gives you more information earlier to kind of know what to focus on. I think this is a good chance for us to segue into talking about grades because we talk a lot about like resume building and planning and internships and all that. And I think the perennial question that parents grapple with would be, if your grades are kind of middling, right? Is it still valuable to plan? Like, wouldn't it be a situation that you're inherently going to be led by where your grades take you? So what are your thoughts on that?
My follow-up question is when are these grades? When are you getting these grades, right? If you're getting bad grades in JC too, yeah, definitely. Just spend your time studying, right? It goes without saying. I mean, of course, you need to have a rough plan of what you want to aim for, but you might not have as many choices as you want.
Let's say 15. Let's say you're middling at 15, and 15 is tricky, right? Because if you're in local schools, you're O-levels, or unless you're IP, then I guess it's not a big issue. If you're in international school, you have the IGCSEs, and that's also another, checkpoint that they'll look at. So if you're middling in 15, at 15, let's say you're a B and C student, right? Not great. What kind of planning is helpful, or should it be, let's go all in on grades first?
I think grades should be your focus at that point. But that being said, I wouldn't throw out any kind of plan, right? Because even if you are a student who's not doing too well, you have things that you'd rather do. Like you have things that you'd rather study. You have first choice, second choice, third choice. So I think actually if the student is able to formulate those goals, for example, let's say they really want to be a doctor in Singapore, right? And from personal experience as well, I can see how this can really motivate the student to do better. Because a lot of students, when they study for studying's sake, they may not fully understand what they are studying for, right? But if let's say you see that, okay, I need these grades to eventually become a doctor, then it becomes very clear that, hey, I really need to get this if I were to achieve my dream.
Let's flip it around, right? So we talk about some value of planning when you're middling. I guess you're saying kind of as a hedge. It's like, we study, but let's have some let's not forego the CV building, is what you're saying,
because
right?
you don't want to end up, let's say you're in your last 2 years of high school, and then you have done nothing at all. Right? Yeah.
So let's flip it around. Like, what about if you were fantastic grades-wise? Like, do you have case studies where a kid does really well, but still can't go where they want to go for a lack of planning? Do these things happen?
I mean, it does happen, right? It actually happens even if the kid is fantastic with grades and also fantastic with extracurricular activities and all that. And again, it points to like just how competitive it is. If you do not know what the school is looking for, if you do not know what the specific course is looking for, you could be barking up the wrong tree, so to speak. So in our very traditional kind of sense of what a good resume or good CV is, right? It's going to be someone who's good at sports, good at performing arts, good at school, international academic kind of competition awards, leadership appointments, right? I actually had a student who was all of these things, okay? ACS boy, top IB score, aiming for Harvard, right? Couldn't make it. And that's just, just due to the fact that he didn't plan, I would say he planned too organically. And this would have worked for him maybe 5, 10, 20 years ago, right? But if you're talking about the landscape now, you need to know exactly what the schools are looking for. You need to have a plan. And you need to systematically work towards a plan. Right.
I think just to round up, I think a useful thing for us to touch on would be, I think this whole notion of planning creates a lot of stress, inevitably, right? Because, I mean, on a parent, on a child. So, I think the fundamental takeaway is that university is no longer something where you do well, you get in, right? I think we've established that. And planning basically means let's work backwards from admission requirements and let's try to check off as many of those boxes as we can. But as I said, I think there's this stress factor here, which is, some people will take it to the extreme, which is we want to go to Harvard, you're going to have to learn chess, you're going to have to hit like 2,000 ELO by 16, right? Just as an extreme example,
Sure.
at what point do we see diminishing returns? Like, where's that red line, right? So what we have established is we don't plan.
Yep.
But I think we could go to the other extreme as well. So where do we draw that line?
So the how you draw a line is to see how the plan or how the student reacts to the plan. Okay? I think at the point where the plan stops serving you, the plan gives you so much stress that you cannot function, that's when you need to rethink the plan. Because ultimately the plan should make you feel confident, makes you feel in control of your choices, right? So I would say that that's really the point. It's a very practical kind of thing, right? If it stops working for you, then you need to reassess what your plan should be like. For example, maybe chess is not the way to go about it, right? There could be another activity. Yeah.
Can we maybe just refine that a little bit and say, so let's pick up from the 15-year-old checkpoint, because that's obviously a critical checkpoint. How many things would you say one should focus on? Like, how much is too much?
I mean, numbers.
I mean, in my example, I just talk about chess as an arbitrary thing. But like, let's talk about it a bit more generically, right? Okay, so you have the grades, and then of course you have to balance out your CCA needs and all that, right? So, what's that ideal number that beyond that is just nuts?
So in terms of things that you kind of do on a, let's say, participatory basis, maybe not more than 2, right? And the kind of things that you really want to focus, right? I'll say 1, 2 max, right? Because you really don't need that many things that you excel in. And most people don't excel in more than one thing, really. You really want to focus on one area where you can go super, super deep. Where I'll add this, though, is how you apply this expertise, right? Because the expertise could be applied, let's say, for example, if you are a student leader at a certain club in school, right? You can apply it in your school club. You can apply it to an outside project where you raise awareness for something. You can apply it towards an academic competition, right? You can apply it towards a research paper, right? So that's how I would think about it.
Cool. Just to wrap up, I guess the way I will look at the whole uni thing is, we all know that it's getting more competitive. We need to plan, but I think at the end of the day, the goal would be, for every parent would be, let's get our kid into a university and course that they will be happy with, that, gives them a good springboard. So what would you say is a good 3-step plan, 3-step approach to, getting there?
Yeah.
Whether it be Singapore, US, or UK.
Yeah, okay. So step 1, really, you need to make sure you expose your child to as many different things as possible. Like I said, before the age of 15, right? Because you want to find out more about their strengths, their interests, what they're good at, and then nurture those strengths. That's important, because you don't just become good at something overnight, right? So you'll be in a far better place if you nurture those strengths before the age of 15, right? And then from the age of 15 to 18, that's when you want to really sit down and think, do I have a goal that I'm aiming for? Whether it's a university, a course, or a future career, right? If you do not have a goal, then you need to sit down and start thinking about, what should I be aiming for, right? Once you have determined the goal, then I'll say that's where the hard plan comes in. That's where you need to see, okay, to get there, what are all the steps I need to take? Right? Make sure that you do it in a way that is very systematic. The school, you need certain grades, you need certain activities, right? Make sure they have all those things to really get you to where you want to go.
So Naga, you know what to do.
I got 10 more years to plan.
You have 10 more years to plan.
Explore. Then I plan after that.
Great. Thanks, Daryl.
Okay.